Hi there, welcome to my offline presentation. I'm going to give you kind of a final version of the presentation that I was working on with you guys last Thursday, kind of show you hopefully where you can get to in your presentation. Here we go. So this is money stuff. We're at NYU Shanghai. I imagine some of you might be thinking about majoring in finance. And if you're going to major in finance, you might even be looking ahead to what kind of job could I have in finance? Well, if you look at the internet, you'll see one thing that's hot for finance majors these days is private equity. These are some headlines from career advice websites, networking websites. Even this is from Money Stuff, all from this year, talking about how popular private equity is for people looking for jobs in finance. Now, you guys know my stance. I told you I thought private equity was evil because they ruined my favorite sports website. But as I've done research for this presentation, I think saying the word evil isn't the best word that we can use. It's not that they're trying to do bad things, but there is a problem here with private equity. And today I really want to talk about what I think is a better claim, that private equity really demonstrates the harms of financialization in the economy today. And I want to do that by one, showing you how private equity really does a good job of demonstrating this overuse of finance, financialization, and then talking about how that financialization causes harms to some different stakeholders in society. So, but before I get to that, just a brief kind of overview of what private equity is. And this is some information I got from a YouTube show called Good Work, who had a video published this year. And this YouTube channel, they're sponsored by a financial television show in the US. And in it, they talk to some people who have written books and other experts who know a lot about private equity. And they talk about how private equity is essentially an investment firm, and the way they make money, though, is they purchase companies with the goal of taking them private and improving them somehow, and then selling them later at a higher profit. And this difference is how they make money for their investors. But a crucial thing to note about private equity is when they purchase these companies, they borrow much of the cost of purchasing the different companies. But the private equity firm itself doesn't take on this debt. It goes to the target company. They're the ones that are ultimately responsible for this. This will be important in a minute. Okay, so how does this process demonstrate financialization? Well, I think the first thing here is we've taken a company and we've turned it into an investment, right? We're focusing now on speculative assets. So we know that in capitalism, we use the profit motive to have companies provide a good or provide a service. In the hopes that they can make money, they will offer different things for us. But here, this has been moved up one level of abstraction. Now we're trying to use the businesses themselves to make money for us, to make money for the investors. And I think this financialization of what companies do is part of what causes the harm that we'll talk about later. The other way that this shows financialization is very simple. We have this large amount of debt. We know from Epstein, from Turner, from other sources that we've had that part of this problem with financialization is more debt. And there's a stat from this book called Private Equity at Work, published in 2014, that really demonstrates how much debt is involved in this. If you look at companies that are owned by private equity firms, they have a debt to earnings ratio of 67%. But if you look at non-private equity owned firms, it's only 14%. So the debt is 3 to even 4 times higher in these private equity owned firms. And I think we can see how this financialization now will lead to some harm for different stakeholders in society. So the first group I want to look at to see where this financialization causes pain is workers. We know from what we just talked about that private equity firms are overly financialized and they have a lot of debt. And this leads to some bad things that happen to workers. First of all, they want to make the companies more profitable. One way you can do that is by eliminating workers or lowering wages. We learned this from the book Private Equity at Work. Both of these things will help them service the debt as well as make the company more profitable. And you can see this in a 2019 study published in the Journal of Financial Economics that looked at private equity firms in Germany. And in Germany, we saw that wages were down in private equity owned firms. The employment rate was also down. So we could see empirically that private equity firms, the workers are hurt in those industries. But you can also see how private equity hurts people who use the services that are provided by the firms that are owned by the private equity companies. An article published in 2020 in the Baffler, an American periodical, talked about how in America, private equity firms bought up much of the mobile homes, temporary houses that people live in. Of course, the rents went up, the fees for the users went up, and the management became less responsive to the needs of the renters. All of these practices are designed to make the company more profitable and also to be able to make it pay off that debt. You can also see it in the sports blog that I read. When private equity took over, they changed the voice of the website. They made it talk about different things. They led to more ads that made the experience worse for the user. And it was so bad, in fact, that the entire staff quit. They could not even handle the requirements set on them by the private equity firm in their goals of financialization, right? They're only worried about making money. And again, you see this really hurt the company. Their readership went from almost 20 million people per month down to just a couple million, as reported in the blog Awful Announcing, which looks at sports media websites. And this is from 2020. A more updated article from this summer is still down low, right? So you can see that the interest of just making the company more profitable led to a worse product that people do not read near as much as they used to. So that shows you just a few of the harms caused by the financialization in private equity. So in conclusion, I think we can see the harms and that come from the financialization. Well, you can ask yourself, is it worth it, right? Are they making money for their investors? Well, according to that YouTube video that I watched, as well as the book Private Equity Work, we really don't know. One, they don't have to report their earnings. It's complicated to measure their performance, but we don't have a good idea. The book Private Equity at Work suggested, though, that only a few of the private equity firms, maybe the top 10 to 20%, could even outperform the stock market, suggesting that maybe the returns are not worth the cost of this loss. But I do want to show you, I hope this does show you that if you're looking to get a job in finance, maybe private equity is not the place for you. Here's my works cited. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation.